So officially, a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Josiane, and I am um, today we're lucky to have with us three designers. It was supposed to be four. One is not here yet. We will see if she comes in as the session goes. So we currently have um, Amy from the Devious Knitter, Deb Milstein, and Jessie from Yarn Over New York. So I will start by having our designers introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their design business and how they got started. Maybe we could start with Jessie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessie. My brand is Yarn Over New York, which is named because I am here in New York. And I started out in 2007 as a crochet designer, um, making my own designs and also selling finished items. That kind of grew over the years, and now I am an indie dyer mostly, and I live inside of a yarn factory. So I've learned how to knit, learned how to dye yarn, and live in the dream here in New York.
The colorful dream. That sounds awesome. Thank you. How about you, Amy? Please go ahead with your introduction.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Amy Snell, and my brand is The Devious Knitter. I am a knitting instructor, and I've been a knitting instructor for about 20 years. I came to design about 5 years ago when I was setting up a class that needed some particular type of project that was required in order to teach the technique that I was teaching. And I couldn't find anyone else's design that suited. So I designed something that worked. And once I had figured out the whole process of how to actually bring designs to life and publish them and get them tech edited and tested and all of that, I realized that I had notebooks and notebooks full of things that I had worked out for myself. I've always designed my own things for myself to knit, and I realized that I could start bringing those things to public, and so it's gone from there.
Yeah, well, why not keep going? That was a great move. And Deb, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Deb Milstein, and I design under the brand Late Night Knits. I have been an artist for as long as I can remember. I studied art and graphic design in college, and then went on to get a master's degree in costume design. After that, I spent quite some time in the entertainment industry, but made the difficult decision to stop working when our son was born. It wasn't long after that before I started knitting and crocheting. And learning to design was sort of a natural extension of both the knitting on my own and working with color and texture from painting. I like to work in simple shapes with bold colors, and my designs contain encoded lace patterns. I also design graphic tees and other merch that I sell on my website. And I've been on a break from knitting design for about 18 months due to a return to school, but you can expect quite a few designs in 2025.
Sounds awesome. So we'll keep going with the first question we have for you, which is how do you begin a new design? So what may be the inspiration, or what is the first spark in your process, or whatever? So please take it away the way you want, you feel like answering that. And we will start with Amy, please.
Thank you. My designs come from a lot of different places. I have literally woken up in the morning with a design fully formed in my head.
Nice.
Those are and that can be challenging because sometimes it's not something that's really practical to knit, and I have to spend a lot of time figuring out how to make the knitting actually do the thing that I want to have happen. Sometimes I see surface design out in the world. It might be a carpet. It might be the way, literally, I have a photo in my phone of the way a shadow from overhead in an airport crossed the floor. I have a whole album in my phone of things I see when I'm out in the world, and a lot of times those patterns are things that then come into my designs. And sometimes it's a small detail, a little piece of a geometric. I do a lot of things with geometry, so it might be something that intrigues me that's geometric, and I think, well, can I make yarn do that? And then where does that belong, and how does that become a design? Other times I might be at a festival and I see some yarn and I pull some colors together. And again, the colors inspire me. And I think this needs to be a shawl, and it needs to be like this, and it needs to use this. I sort of get excited by the yarn. So this can all come from a lot of different places. And sometimes the things that I wind up with aren't really the place that I start, but I think that's part of the process, is allowing things to sort of to be generative and to evolve as the process goes along.
Hmm. And does it still happen that you need to create new designs for your teaching?
Yes, that does
Yeah.
happen. And a lot of times I'll be excited about teaching a new class, and I'll think, well, what exactly do I want to do when I premiered, for example, a cabling without a cable needle class. I wanted to do a scarf. I wanted to put lots and lots of cables, very simple ones of a certain size in the beginning, and then grow to more complex cables and make that a cohesive design. So that was kind of a fun challenge.
Interesting. What about you, Deb? How do you begin a new design?
Most often it starts with a word and some charting software. I write a lot of patterns based on encoded lace. So I assign each letter in the word to a number, and then I use those numbers to mark where I'm going to put the increases on the charts. And after that, I add the decreases. And once I have that laid out, I start playing around with flipping the increases and decreases around until I get a symmetrical design that I'm happy with. And then based on those numbers, if I have a sense, I can probably move on to either sketching, or if I don't really see in my head how the lace is going to look, then I'll swatch. And then after that, I'll maybe do some sketching and then write and knit the pattern at the same time.
Interesting. And how do you choose the words that you decide to encode in lace?
I have a list. Some of them have been the names of friends. Some of them have been song names or phrases that I like. Sometimes it's characters from books. And I actually, sometimes when I need a brain break, I'll just go write a lace chart. So I have a whole file on my computer of these lace charts that I've written that don't have corresponding designs yet.
Mhm. Interesting. Um, I had a follow-up question, which just slipped my mind. But thank you. That was very interesting.
You're welcome.
How about you, Jessie? Do you begin by choosing knit or crochet, since you do both?
Well, I do both, and sometimes I will try to find ways to create the same pattern in both techniques, which is a newer thing that I'm trying to do because I want to have the broad appeal. So usually that will start with knitting, and then I will try to figure out how to do it in crochet, even though I was a crocheter first. Um, I knitting has surpassed the crochet. And so usually I will have a cool stitch that I want to try to figure out, and I will swatch and sketch. But to be honest, now that I'm a yarn dyer, I start with the yarn. And so I will know that I want to put two different yarns together, and then I need to create something that will showcase the yarn and be appropriate to the texture of the yarn or the dye of the yarn, and not compete.
Right.
And I
So
too have piles of sketches and ideas, a whole like folding binder full of things that I've come up with over the years. And if I'm ever needing inspiration, I'll dig through and find something from there.
interesting. So you've got plenty to keep you busy for years to come.
Yes. That's the joy of running your own business. Never run out of things to do.
Right. And so when you begin with the yarn, it's as much the texture as the color that would inspire you, or
Yes, absolutely. Like for example, if I'm working with something non-superwash, then I know what the strengths of that yarn are. You know, like they're great for color work, and they're great for you know, wonderful stitch definition. So I will know that I want to feature the stitch definition, feature the, intricacies of, like Fair Isle knitting or something like that. And, if it's sock yarn and is highly variegated, then I know that, making a sock is a great thing because the way that the colors can stack can create lots of wonderful things. So it really is a combination of the color and the fiber put together, and how can I make the yarn and the design work together and shine together.
awesome. Okay. All right. I have muted the new person who joined. So next question for you all. What was your hardest pattern to design and why? I see Deb smiling. Maybe you want to start us off with that one.
So I have a tendency to take on a bit more than I can chew.
Mm.
And my very first pattern was probably the hardest because I had this idea for a cabled hat that would have the cables matching when you turned up the brim, but I didn't want it to be bulky as knitwear tends to get when you do a reversible cable. So in addition to figuring out how to write a hat pattern and how to publish a design, I also had to figure out how could I make this so that when the brim is turned up, everything fits together nicely. Fortunately, I was taking a class in Vogue knitting at the time with the designers from Tin Can Knits, and they helped me figure out how to swatch for cables and how to swatch for my other stitches, and we talked through that process. But I probably should think about designing what I know when I'm going through that process and using my fun knitting projects to figure out problem-solving things.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which then, once you've solved those problems, you can integrate and incorporate into your designs.
exactly. I will say that it was worth the effort and it's still my best-selling pattern, so no complaints.
Awesome. How about you, Jessie? Any one of your pattern that was the hardest one to design?
So I'm going to be honest. I hate this question and I don't identify with it. So I'm going to pivot and say
Go ahead.
this little capybara is a design that I made that I sat down, I had a request from a friend to make a capybara, and I crocheted it perfectly from the very first stitch to the very end without having to rip it out at all. And the hardest part was figuring out how to make a chart. And so I got my Sharpies out and I drew the chart a bunch of times until the chart worked. And so Sarah the capybara was the one that I choose to highlight because I don't know, I'm a process person, so the process is the fun. And I don't yeah, I just don't identify with the difficulty. It's part of the process and part of the fun.
Mhm. No, that's a great answer, actually. Designing it was easy, but then charting it was a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, there was no crochet charting software back then, and the way that I could make it work was different colored Sharpies and a piece of paper. So if you buy that pattern today, it still has the original handwritten chart in it.
There you go. And how about you, Amy? Any one of your designs that was hardest to design for some
Yes, I
reason?
think one that actually this one here, Amberine, which is a wrap, had particular challenges because it's knit modularly. It's knit from modular triangles, and they are they need to fit together in a certain way. I wanted to have the knitting going in all directions. I wanted it to have it growing out. It's got these eyelet rows, and they go in all different directions. And you can kind of see from here, they actually go out, and I wanted that, and I wanted that in the finished piece. And what that meant was picking up and knitting triangles that were sometimes equilateral and sometimes isosceles from a piece of a certain length that would decrease at a certain rate and wind up to be a certain size once they were down to one stitch, which meant the Pythagorean theorem. So I was deep in the math, and I'm not a huge math person. That's the irony. I am an English person and a liberal arts person. And what you do when you're a designer is you do a lot of technical writing. And so this was the very mathiest piece, and it's beautiful, and it looks simple and elegant, and it just flows, and all of the stitches just flow. And that's what you want in the end pattern. But getting there was challenging. Fortunately, I am married to a former math major, and I did ask him to double and triple and quadruple check all of my math as I was writing this for myself to knit up, because although I had done samples and small scale sample, I needed to know how to expect that it was going to go, because the number that I cast on in the beginning it produced everything else. And I had to get that number right in the beginning, or else I was going to be knitting and reknitting this thing forever.
Interesting. And it's really practical to have a math major at home.
Yes.
Nice. Next question for you all. How do you keep up your motivation during the testing and writing stage? Jessie, want to take this one first?
Sure. So like I said earlier, I'm a process maker, and I have been my whole life. And it's almost like once I make something, it's dead to me and I forget that it exists. So my motivation is the process, is making the thing, making the pattern. You know, I will usually, I think unlike a lot of people, I will write out the whole pattern first. And then it's almost like did I write it the right way? And then I make it as I go and make the edits. And the process really does keep me motivated. And if I had nothing else to do, I would just create and create and create, and then everything would just disappear when it was done, so I would have more room to create things. That's why I sell yarn, because I can create it and then it goes away.
And how about you, Amy? Any when you're in those parts of the process, any problem keeping up motivation? Or
Sometimes, and my process really can vary depending on the project. There are those that are straightforward enough that I can write it out for myself or chart it for myself and go from there. But oftentimes, even then, I find that as I knit it, the yarn is going to look better a certain way, or maybe not going to be what I thought it was going to be. So generally, I'm kind of doing the process where I am knitting and I make notes. I have a notepad, an electronic notepad. I can do handwritten notes as I go that then I can convert into text, and making all of those handwritten notes and rewriting them. And oh no, I'm going to do this increase instead of what I thought would look good here. Having that already in my electronic notepad makes it so much easier when it's time to turn that into text, because I'm not rewriting. It's the bones are there, and then I just have to make it, be something that everyone else can understand. So that helps me a lot, because I've sort of pre-done some of what I find to be the hard work. I'm not starting from scratch when it comes to actually writing the pattern. And I try to do the things when if I'm knitting it and I have a flash of inspiration about how I want to describe this, I write that down right away while I'm still enthused about that thing that I wanted to say or describe. I also find it helpful to have different projects at different stages. because if something is at the stage where I just need to knit on this a long time and repeat all the things I've already figured out, then that can become what I call my knit while knitting. I can knit while I'm watching TV. I can knit while I'm on a Zoom call. I can knit while I'm at knit night versus my full attention, full concentration stages. It's nice for me to have something that's at the full concentration stage and something that's at the just knit while stage.
That's a wise strategy.
And the
And
weaving in end stage.
right.
They can stay in that phase a long time, can't they?
Same for, well, I know it's the case for many makers. It's interesting to hear that designers have the same problem with that.
Yeah.
And how about you, Deb? So is the testing or the writing phase a time when there's a dip in motivation, or?
I actually have the opposite problem. I have a tendency to hyper-focus on anything in the design process. So when I am in the middle of a design, it's actually very difficult to tear me away from that to do anything else. I will say that if I have projects that are in different stages along the way, I will work in time blocks. I'll use like an hour or two in the morning to respond to test knitters that have questions, and then I'll do some grading, or then I'll do some knitting so that I'm not trying to switch between one thing and the other so that I can maintain a certain level of concentration. But I mean, to be honest, if I could, my entire life would be filled with crafting and making and writing knitting patterns. I have to be reminded to stop and live.
All right. So next question we have is, do you try to find your niche, or are you just designing what you want to make? Maybe Deb, we could keep going with you on that one.
Sure. I mean, that's always a struggle. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? I think that in order to keep your designs authentic, you need to design what moves you and what inspires you. So I think it's more of a branding question and a question about how do you reach your target audience? And then your target audience is the people who like to design the same things as you, or who need to solve the same problems in their knitting that you have, or who have the same aesthetic. So I think it's less a case of designing to your niche or as designing and finding out who your niche is and speaking to them.
That sounds great. And I see nodding heads here. Jessie, want to add something to that?
So I will say that before I dyed yarn, when I was just doing design, I didn't have a niche. Like I didn't have a focus. I was all over the place, and through becoming a yarn dyer and then changing my focus to be designing for my own yarns, that's when I kind of like settled into it, because I did start trying to do stuff that was technically complicated or unique little toys and all of that. And now that it is to showcase the fiber and the colors that I'm dealing with, it really, all of my designs now follow that, because it helps my business, but also is just part of the process. Like I'll dye colors, and then the colors will inspire me, and the design goes with them. And so many people that are my knit and crochet design customers are also my yarn customers, and I think that they really appreciate the package of, this is the yarn and this is what you make with it. Because so many times people shop for yarn and they're like, oh, what could I make with it? And I'm like, I got the solution for you.
There you go. And how about you, Amy? What's your take on this niching or doing what you want question?
Yeah, I think Deb made some really good points, and this is very similar to what I arrived at in my own work. There are many, you can look at the trends and say, oh, hey, the Pantone color this year is boring beige, And um, and everyone is doing, I don't know, makeup a stitch, right? Everyone's doing, I don't know, scarves with star stitch, and it's super popular. Well, if that's what everyone's doing, then there are already a lot of scarves with star stitch out there, right? Um, I like to focus on what I'm excited about. If I see this thing and it says, oh, but what if I took it and I turned it into a crossover sweater that had some detailing that did this, and I'm excited about that, then that's the direction I should go. I can't I can't follow someone else's trends. I need to be authentic to what excites me. I don't know what a particular random customer might be inspired by, but I do know what I'm excited by. And if I continue to do the things that are exciting me and what I find intriguing, then I have to hope that I'm connecting through my work with the types of knitters who also find those things exciting and intriguing. I don't know how to design to anyone else's taste but mine. And so I have to keep being true to what it is that I love.
Mhm. And I have found that enthusiasm is contagious in a way. So if you do what you're enthusiastic about, then chances are that people who can be enthusiastic about the same thing will just catch, what you're trying to sending out and jump in with you. And our last question we had is, what are we going to see from you next? And I see samples. I see, oh, Jessie's ready with. Go ahead, Jessie, since you already have in hand.
Well, I mentioned the weaving in ends problem.
Okay, I see what you mean.
This is next when we get over the weaving in the ends problem. This is a sock weight version of the scarf that I'm wearing now. And I will say that I designed this inspired by a blanket that my Nona crocheted that apparently she gave to me when I was very young because I told her that I liked it, but I don't remember that. I was that young. And 30 years later, my mother gave it to me and said, "Here, this is from your Nona." And I loved it. And I said, I want to make something that's like that, but I don't want to make a blanket. So I made the scarf, and then I said, this is a DK weight version. I said I need a sock weight version. So this is my sock weight version. And like I said, once I weave in all these ends, it will be mini morpho size, and that'll come out in January, provided I
Sounds
weave in
great.
the ends.
Yeah, and I can see how weaving in the ends will help with, making great pictures of that design. Because
No one
you
wants to
cannot
make
hide
this.
one, you cannot just do as if, wear it as if there was just one hand and hide it behind your bag. No.
No, not gonna happen.
Awesome. Deb, any preview, scoop, or something we can have on what's coming from you next?
I can give you scoop and a quick preview. I have a hat, 2 shawls, and 2 sweaters in various stages of design that I had to put on hold while I was getting my business degree. The bobble hat is probably closest to being completed. I think that may come out January or early February. I am planning on a book. My grandfather was a poet, and he passed when I was 5, so we've never interacted as adult artists. So I am interested in publishing a book that has one of his poems side by side with one of my designs so that we can connect through the generations. And I'm in the process of knitting this. This is a stole that I'm making. I have a mini set of opal yarns. I can't see my camera, so let me know if you can see it. But I'm playing with orange as the unifying solid color in between the stripes.
That's beautiful. And about that book, do the designs that you will be including in the book, are they somehow inspired by the poems? Are they related in some way?
I will probably take a word or a phrase from the poems and write a lace pattern corresponding to something in the poem and then design it. And it'll be a book of accessories and sweaters. So some of each.
Awesome. Such a
buy it.
beautiful way to use your
Wonderful.
encoded lace. Yeah. Awesome. We love that idea. And there's a comment in the chat saying that's such a beautiful concept. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
love it. Amy, what's coming up from you?
Yes, the next piece that I'm going to be releasing is this shawl. It's called Zugzwang. Pull it off so that you can see some of the details, because I think the dark yarn prevents you from really seeing the stitch detailing here. But this is based on a stitch pattern that I wanted to explore more fully and wanted to take that into a triangular shawl. So this is at that stage of we're finishing the testing and the tech editing and things like that, but that'll be out very soon. The word Zugzwang is a German word that is used in checkers and chess to describe the rules that say you must move even when you want to, even when you don't want to, or even when it would make your position worse. And to me, the patterning here on the shawl makes me think of a checkerboard that's perfectly set and all the pieces are exactly where they want to be, but there's that compulsion to move, and that also for me has to do with the way I'm moving the stitches.
That's beautiful too. I love that.
Thanks. So there's that, and then of course I have my pieces that I do have two brioche pieces that are at the really chewy figuring things out stage that are partway swatched, but one is a hat with some very complicated crown decreases that sometimes you have to knit them and reknit them to get them to be just what you want, and one is a cowl that's about to get much more complicated. And again, working the chewy bits of exactly what I have in my head and trying to get that onto the needles to get it to do what I'm seeing. Then I have a piece that's a long rectangular shawl that's just in the knit while stage. This is completely written out and charted out, and then just has to be knit on for a very long time until it's a finished piece.
Nice. So plenty to keep you busy for a while.
Plenty. Yeah.
Interesting. I see Deb is already interested in knitting that new shawl of yours that's coming, with a son who's a competitive chess player. That's so cool. So we're already at the end of our questions we had. You've been marvelously concise, and having only 3 designers helped with that as well. I don't know if we have questions from the audience. Anyone wants to ask something from our designers, you can raise your hand. You can ask in the chat, or I can keep going with more questions. All right, so while they're thinking up their questions, I will ask you, because in a previous panel, when we were discussing the motivation question about the testing and writing stage, there was unanimity. They were all, testing is just the most fun. They were all like, it's finally the time when I get to see people, making my thing. I get to see it becoming a real thing in the world outside of me. And in another panel for another designer, it was like, well, I never get feedback from my testers. It was really a bitter, kind of more difficult part of the process. So what is testing like for you? How do you deal with that, or whatever? So maybe Jessie?
I would say actually testing is one of the harder parts because it requires a lot of patience, which
Mm.
is valuable. It's valuable. And it does save difficulty in the future, but it does require patience on my part when people don't understand what I am saying. I'm like, but you should understand it. And then I have to like internalize and say, no, it's my job. That's my job. That's my job. So, yeah, it's one of the more challenging parts because sometimes testers will say, "Oh, I think you meant this," and then go ahead and do what they thought. I'm like, "No, that's not what I said." So you're gonna have to rip that out. And to say that to someone with love and encouragement can sometimes be challenging.
I can imagine. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting take on it. Maybe Deb, what is your experience with the testing and process?
Say that I love seeing my designs come to life, and I like seeing how they look in other yarn choices and coming from people with other sensibilities. Um, I find it also interesting when people ask questions, like when you're writing a pattern, you think you're writing it in the clearest way possible and everything is spelled out, but other people think of things differently. So I learn a lot from my testers when they're asking questions just about the wording or the phrasing. One of the most frustrating parts of the process is when I get an email from a tester who says, I know I signed up to do this test, but I don't like long sleeves, so I think I want to make this short sleeved, and I don't like the stitch pattern, so I want to switch it to, a stockinette because I don't like knitting ribbing or something like that. Like or they want to alter it in a way that's not going to give you the information about did I write this accurately and are my I think one of the most challenging things is to calculate how much yarn is needed.
Mhm.
And if they do something like shorten the sleeves, then I really have no idea if I'm in the correct range. So you have to balance. I want my testers to enjoy the process so that they keep coming back, but I also want them to understand, please knit the pattern as designed, and then you're getting the pattern for free, make it yours later.
Right, but because you need really specific information from them. And
Right.
exactly. Amy, anything you'd like to add to that about the testing process?
The testing process can be challenging. I think one of the hardest things mentally for me is here I am with a finished piece. I've written the pattern. It's been tech edited. I'm excited to go, go, go. And then the test, I think to be humane about it, the test period needs to have a long time. This has to go on for a while. And so I can be very, very excited to release this into the world, but then I need to be patient because what I do find from my testers is valuable information. I think some of the hard things about the test can be designing it and setting it up in such a way that will give me the information and feedback that I need. And that means doing it on a platform or a communication method that is useful for everyone, that's accessible for everyone, that is workable for me. And so if we do find, hey, this was unclear, that everybody can hear right away, here's the clarification, right? The person who is the furthest ahead and got to that, oh, okay, want to let everyone know, here's the adjustment or here's the clarification. And also finding the right mix of folks who have the time to do it, are either have appropriate yarn available or can go get that yarn, and the right spread of experience levels. For me, I think it was very, very important to do a test that has not just people. For example, when I was releasing my wood leaf cowl, it's a pretty involved textural pattern that uses elements of not cables, but elements of cabling to move things across the pattern. It's got leaves that grow and twine up the cowl. And it was really important to have both people who were very used to doing that type of work, as well as folks who had never done that. I had to make sure I had someone, and someone wrote to me and said, I'd really love to do the test knit, but I've never worked I've never worked from a chart before. Great, I want you to do this. And, I'm including written and charted instructions. So I want to know that some of my testers are working from the written instructions. Some of them are working from the charted instructions. So it's a lot to think about, and getting the right balance, the right mix of folks that are, essentially we want to have some kind of idea of representation of different experience levels, different skill levels, different approaches to the pattern, so that you've kind of got that covered. And it's not possible to do it perfectly, but we're out there trying, and
Yeah.
also trying to get it done in a reasonable amount of time so that we can then bring the pattern into the world.
Right. So it's a very valuable part of the process, but a challenging one as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So we have a few questions from the audience. Kathleen asks, do you have any patterns that you'd like to redo or change in some way? Any one of you has an answer to that? Oh, Jessie.
The answer is always yes. I want to redo them. And I will say again, yarn dyer. I was a designer before I was a yarn dyer. So there's a bunch of things that I've made using commercial yarn or using yarn that was given as yarn support from a magazine, and the rights have reverted back to me. And so it is my mission to redo my back catalog featuring my own yarn, and also better photos, clearer writing, all of that stuff. But yeah, like yeah, the process never stops. Even if it's done, the process never stops.
Yeah. Anything comes to mind, or we go to the next question? Amy, Deb.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think the better I get as a designer, the more experienced I get, right? There are things that I would go back and tweak and maybe do better. Honestly, the thing I think I would like to do best is just update the layout and graphical design of everything. And gosh, that's a big deal too. If you change the layout and look moving forward, do you go back and relay out everything so that it's consistent? Some things that were published first in a magazine or book, then it doesn't look the same as other things, and it can be hard to really look at what's the right place to spend the time and energy that you have, which is limited. And a lot of that is the knitting time. I think I would love to make 2 or 3 samples of everything. And I definitely have, pieces. Hey, I'd like to make another one and make it bigger and make it in a different color, maybe just for my own use. But again, how do I spend that knitting time? It's a challenging thing to balance.
Yeah. I don't know if Deb has one specific answer in mind. If not, we can go to the next question because we have 2 more.
Let's go to the next question. I have one, but let's get to the next question.
Yeah, perfect. So now Joanne asks, now that yarn craft is your work, is it also still your hobby, or did you maybe seek a new creative hobby? Any one of you wants to take that one? Yeah, Deb, go ahead.
It's still my hobby. I love knitting patterns by other designers just to see how they have solved problems. And I also enjoy letting the yarn run through my fingers without having to think about, am I recording this properly? Or, is this the right way to do the decrease? So it's still my go-to for de-stressing and relaxing.
That sounds perfect. I
I
see
agree,
Jessie
Deb.
nodding.
It can
Yeah.
feel so free and easy to knit someone else's pattern.
Mm,
And, yeah, I look at things sometimes and I want that, or I want to make that one. And for a long time, I didn't give myself permission to do that because I thought, well, I need to spend all my time doing this, all of my knitting time. And I think I have a better balance now that I knit 3 sweaters that were someone else's pattern this year. And those were fun and I enjoyed it. And it was, it didn't mean I wasn't also knitting my own patterns at those times, but I can have both. I do have other hobbies. I remain a poor spinner. I love spinning. I don't spin anything that's worth really using in my knitting. It's not consistent enough, but I enjoy getting to be a student of spinning. And, there are some really wonderful teachers out there that I was able to get to take classes with before they no longer taught anymore. And I feel very, very fortunate that I've gotten to have many classes with Judith McKenzie and with Stephanie Gustad. And um, I think I'm sort of determined to remain a student spinner because I like to be a student at something. And I've gotten to the point in my knitting where it's really few and far between that I can find something that's new to me. So I like to find things new to me in other places.
Awesome. Awesome.
I
How
would
about you,
say
Jason?
I don't design garments. So when I want a sweater, I need somebody else to do that for me. So I love, love, love knitting other people's sweater designs. Never, never get bored of that.
That's a great answer. Yeah. I love that. And then Tish in the chat asks, what advice do you have for young designers who want to work for themselves one day? Is there anything any of
Just do it.
you would
One
just do
stitch
it?
at a time. Just do it.
Anything else anyone wants to add to that? Yeah, Deb.
I would say, remember that it takes time. It takes time to build a business. It takes time to build a brand. It takes time to build a reputation. Keep at it. It will come. Stick to your aesthetic and go for it.
Nice. Amy, any piece of advice you would have liked to be given when you started or something?
It's okay to start small. It's okay for it to take time. And it's not like I could just quit my job and quit my day job and do this. Do the designing in particular, I think it can be very hard to make a true living at. And so, for me, I teach more than I design, and that's what works for me. But it's okay to do, you might see designers dropping a pattern every month, but you don't have to be working at that rate. It's okay to design something once a year or once every 2 years if that's what pleases you and what makes you, lets you bring something you love into the world.
Nice, thank you. And Kathleen has another question that's also related to business. What do you think is the most organic way to find your audience? What kind of strategies for audience building have worked or not worked for you? Anything you'd have to share about that? Anyone wants to take that one? Ooh, I see designers in deep thought.
It's hard. It used to be easier. It's harder now. Yeah, I mean, at least for me, I was lucky enough to be able to find audience on Ravelry and on Instagram and those places before the algorithm really destroyed the ability to access people. So it it is hard, and um, the advice that I would give is that nothing is permanent. It feels that way. Like if you have a bad day or a bad month or a bad whatever, it feels like it will be like that forever. It won't. The world keeps changing and you can change with it. And you can have a super successful design that, makes $500 when out right after you hit publish. And then the next one you can be like, I can't give it away for free. And like Amy has said, you have to view it as a learning experience, take what works, let go of what doesn't, and be willing to try new things, but don't get too caught up on a bad day because it won't be forever.
Anyone else wants to add something to that? Yeah, Deb, go ahead.
I would say it is hard to break through all of the noise. You have to be always willing to speak about yourself. I know we're often taught as women to be modest and not to brag. shout it from the rooftops. I've got this great design. Ask people to share it with with their friends. You know, and also keep in mind that when you're looking at the numbers of views and the numbers of followers, even if you're only getting 50 views, that could mean that not enough people are, like, the algorithm is not showing your post to all of the people who are your followers. I would try experimenting with different forms of social media. I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel because video seems to be the way to reach the most people now. But don't get frustrated. Your audience will find you. They will.
Yeah, and I think, Deb's point about trying different things, you don't know what's going to resonate with people. Sometimes if I could figure out what it was that made, a single post or something really, really resonate with people and get a lot of views, then, we'd all know the magic formula. And it is changing, and staying current and educating yourself. It's a shame we cannot be just knitters. We also have to, unless we have someone working for us that specializes in this, we do have to stay current. What's new, what's happening, what are the best ways to reach people, and sometimes it's a mystery. I have a few tutorials on YouTube, and for some reason the Judy's Magic cast on tutorial that I did is like, somehow that's taken off. That's the thing that people wanted to see. Some combination of the title of that piece and it's an improved version of Judy's Magic Cast On, and everybody liked that. So that's great. And now, doesn't mean that that goes across everything else I do. It doesn't. But we can look at that and say, okay, so maybe people like to see that sort of thing, and maybe I can try to replicate that sort of thing once we have some sort of success with something.
So I'll go with one last quick question. What is your favorite way for people to stay in touch with you? What's the best one, what's the best place for people to find you, and which one do you like best when it comes time to stay in touch with your audience? Jessie.
Can you clarify? Do you mean for pattern support and communication, or do you mean more for the social aspect?
Or to let to let people, when you want to let people know about a new design or stuff, do you have a newsletter? Do you prefer that they keep in touch, or that they follow you on Instagram? What's the place that suits you best?
Definitely the newsletter is the best way, because those people have all opted in to the communication. It's not being shown or not shown on Instagram. It's not a reel when somebody doesn't want to watch a reel. It's an email that is delivered directly to you at the time, mostly the same time every week, and with a format that you've agreed to. So definitely the newsletter is the best way to get your specific audience that wants to hear from you to hear from you. It's not the best exposure way. That would definitely be showing reels and stuff like that. But the best way, once somebody's already in, the newsletter is the way to go.
And you enjoy writing newsletters?
Enjoy is a word for it. No, it's fun. It is hard to keep it interesting every week, but you just got to go back to your core brand values. And for me, that's admiration and inspiration. So if I ever hit a rut, I say, okay, what is there to admire? What is there to inspire? And then I can usually come up with something to write. But yeah, it's hard. There's a reason that people have whole jobs writing newsletters.
Right, but that's a good strategy. So how about you, Amy? What's the best place, the place where you would like people to stay in touch with you most?
Yeah, and it's absolutely the first line is the newsletter. So I would love people to follow me on Instagram. That's great because it is fun. It's visual. It can be ad hoc. I can be out somewhere and I post something, and that's great, and I get to share it. But it doesn't get delivered to everyone and not everyone sees it. So the one thing that gets delivered to everyone is my newsletter. And yeah, so, I absolutely hope people go to my website. It's deviousknitter.com. And if you're there for 10 seconds, there'll be a little pop-up that says, hey, sign up for my newsletter. If you want to know when there's a pattern coming, if you want to know when there's an event coming, if you want to know when my weekly virtual knit night is. Yeah, absolutely. That's where all of my things are. And I think that I'm guessing that's probably true for most designers, most of us here in the business. If we have a website, you can probably go there. You can probably sign up for the newsletter of the folks that you want to follow, because if you really want to hear what's happening for them, that's where most of us are going to be putting it.
And is that the same with you, Deb? Or do you have a different answer to that one?
Yes and no. I do have a link on my website to get to my newsletter, but with business school for the last year and a half plus, I have not sent out a newsletter. So I would say the most consistent place to see me is Instagram, but I will have more time in 2025. So look for updates also and sign up for the newsletter. And if you sign up, eventually you will hear from me, but I'm mostly present on Instagram.
Fantastic. So I've pasted your website's address in the chat. I hope everyone checks you out. That's basically it. It's been an hour, so thank you so much for everybody coming out, and especially to you three, our designers. We hope you enjoyed today's designers video panel, and check out our Fasten Off Yarnalong schedule for more events and activities, because it's not over. There's one more Zoom panel coming, and lots more ask me anything on Discord and everything. So once again, thank you so much for your generosity, your time, your answers, and I hope to see you around. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.